Welcome everyone back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you're new around here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Can't thank you enough for the love and support you've shown. And we're here today to talk about the day that is the first day of what we're calling Draft Trademas, where we're going to cover everything that's happened today in the sphere of AFL. So let's start off nice and easy with Andrew McQualter. Looks set, has been announced as the new Eagles coach. And this is a really interesting one. Obviously, former St Kilda and Gold Coast player. Had a small tenure up at Richmond, if we remember, where he was obviously the assistant coach under Damien Hardwick. Senior coach when Dimmer stepped down at the conclusion of 10. Obviously, after that, he went up to Melbourne and most recently now replacing Adam Simpson. Had a 53% win rate at Richmond as they were faltering. New, fresh. Obviously, it's got this happening though, which is super exciting for everyone involved. And that is none other than it looks like we're going to see Jack Graham and Baker head over out west, which is really interesting. I find this is going to be one that we've been talking about a lot. Liam Baker is one hell of a player, so I think that this one here is a really exciting one in the terms of we've probably been looking for this for what feels like an eternity, let's be honest. It's definitely been one that we've not surprised about per se, and one that I think everyone expected to happen. Jack Graham, obviously, he's one that we talked about the other week, and it makes sense if you think about it. It looks like that these sides are going to go for it. It's going to be very interesting in the terms of what this is going to cost with it being out of contract players. What are they looking for? Obviously, Richmond, with Jack Graham, he is an unrestricted free agent, so that is just the cost of what you see. Non-free agent, though, for Liam Baker. So this could be fascinating in the terms of what is offered and what it's going to cost. The talk is, which we've talked about on this show, that West Coast will trade down pick 3. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I would imagine that this is probably what the Barras pick is for. What they get for Barras, which is pick 13, I'd imagine heads on to Richmond. Obviously, just the contract for Jack Graham. This is good business all round, and I think that you're going to see West Coast, someone's going to make a bold bid for that one. Somebody's going to make a bold bid. So watch this space with that one. I can't wait to get stuck into that one. But real good business all round. Eagles get an established halfback flanker who is an incredible little player. Jack Graham is tough as a Badger's arsehole. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And we talked about Eagles splitting pick 3. Horse of clubs evidently entertaining this. And this is going to be a really interesting one. We talked last night and I was half being facetious, half being serious. But watch out for Chad Warner. I've got a sneaky feeling he is the smoking gun. I don't know anything, no intel. I ain't that kind of guy that peddles that kind of nonsense. But I could see pick 3 being a really attractive offer for someone who's trying to snag him. I think the Eagles obviously will be interested. However, I wouldn't be surprised if something else happens here. So stay tuned for this one. But it makes sense. I could see Richmond going for this. I could see a host of clubs going for this as well. I think the only one you could count out of this one is probably Brisbane and probably North, because I think North may look to split their picks as well. But some really entertaining teams that may look at this one. And it makes sense. You could even see probably the most sensational one ever. I wouldn't be surprised to see Gold Coast get in front of the Lombardo, because it looks like 12 and 6 are on offer, which makes sense. We've talked about this at length. We've picked 12. You just don't know what's going to happen, and that's why this is so entertaining for me. You don't know what's going to happen, and obviously Lombardo is around that pick 6 mark. He's around there. 12, that makes it fabrication. I could see a world where maybe Gold Coast are interested in getting ahead. They probably don't have the list space per se, and they've never done, but pick 12 is going to be fascinating, and I'd imagine Carlton are right in for this one for Dan Houston. We talked about potential picks. The issue with Gold Coast here is they don't value the draft. They never have done. They don't really value their picks when they've got these NGAs there as well. No disrespect to them. It makes sense. They're getting a little bit of a benefit, so you might as well cheat the system per se. This could be a real case here of a future first, which Carlton are offering for Dan Houston at the moment. Is that something that Carlton look at and go, we'll tell you what, we'll give you a future second and pick 12. You get into this draft, hunky-dory, everything's gravy. This could be a real watch this space, but I think everyone will be looking at this one. Particularly Sydney could be a team here that might look in and go, can we get further ahead? Can we get further ahead in the draft? They've got 7 and 19 at the moment, kind of in that no man's space, 17 and 19, where there is depth. They could get a real top-end talent, and if it would help them, maybe acquire pick 3 in a Chad Warner deal. Could be very interesting. So, real watch this space with this one. This one's a real exciting one, and one that we've talked about on here at length. I think everyone's going to be after pick 12, though. It's a real good pick, and it's definitely going to be the great trade bait. Staying in WA, Shai, the hitman Bolton. He's X Factor. He's exciting. He looks set to get his way to Fremantle. It's going to be interesting because a lot of talk here is that there's going to be a partial salary cap dump, which means that Richmond will pay some of his contract. If that's the case, expect 9 and maybe 16. Expect something quite a lot dependent on what the portion is on that. But I'd say pick 9 is probably the starting point here. Is that overs? Yes, if portions of the salary's been paid. It's a bargain. Real good player though, and I think Fremantle are going to be heavily active in this off-season, so really watch out for this. But pick 16 is probably about his money, I'd say, in an open market. Contracted player, playing a little bit of the portion of the salary, that will bump that up to about a 9. Real fascinating here because Richmond are going to have a real good little chest here with 1, 9, and potentially a decent pick from maybe 12. I reckon West Coast will definitely be sniffing around Gold Coast pick, but I'd imagine Gold Coast will on-trade that or maybe use it themselves, as we discussed. But this could be a real fascinating one because obviously West Coast will be watching this with interest because I think more teams are going to be coming in for it. So this is a fascinating one. But Shai Bolton, great signing for them. Can't argue with that. GWS have been linked late with Stringer. They've done this before with players that are out of love, as we say. Only got to look at Jesse Hogan a few years ago. People were saying his career was done. Non-free agent, I don't think it would cost them much. And this is definitely one of them recruitments that you could see being working, especially Cadman working with him, who's like that undersized key. And we've seen Stringer play that role quite a lot. Bit of canniness from Cadman. This could be a really good deal. And this is going to be one that's probably as cheap as chips as well. I mean, this will probably 34 probably gets it done at worst for GWS. Are they going to get anyone as good as him? That helps Essendon because then they've suddenly got 28 and 34, which means then that they're going to get that pick in front of him and potentially have a pick with change left over, which could be. This could even be a future deal where Essendon are looking to next year, which is probably more likely as well, which means it's even better for GWS and even better for Essendon. One to watch this space on because finally someone's interested in Stringer. We talked about this yesterday on the show with Let Dog. Brisbane looking to split 17, which makes sense. Sorry, 18. The reigning premiers, it's got worse for them, and this is going to be a real fascinating tale here. It makes sense, and people always have been asking about this and the point system. Remember, you can go into deficit. We talked about Liam Henry going into deficit at Fremantle. It would be a lot of deficit, though, because there will be a bid in the 20s for Sam Marshall. Obviously, the first bid gets eaten up Brisbane, and then Brisbane have sweet FA. They have like literally 200's worth of points, which would probably mean that they go into deficit, even if you say, which it doesn't, but let's just say Brisbane's 985 of points covers a bid in pick 1, which it doesn't. But let's say he went for Levi Ashcroft. That means they're 500 in debt, right? If he went pick 4, that means they're roughly 500 in debt. Then the other 2 picks don't even cover 480, which is the worst case of Sam Marshall. It makes sense for them to on-trade this and trade it out. It's just who wants it is the interest for me, because Carlton would want it, but they'd want pick 11, Brisbane, because it helps them with their bid, or 2 picks in their 20s, which makes out better on points. This is a real interesting one, because Richmond were a team we talked about coming in, and that could be a bid like 21 and 29 for a future second, and Brisbane's picks 18 could help them go up. So this could be a real fascinating one here, where Richmond maybe get a very good deal here, or maybe it could be something like 29, 39 and 41, because they've got so many picks for 18, which I think is more likely. So I would look out for that one. Pick 29, pick 39 and pick 41, which works out at 15-11, meaning that Brisbane trade pick 17 and maybe a future second back. So Richmond have got some Arsenal next year, and they go up in the draft with the picks that are coming in as well, predicted from Fremantle and obviously West Coast Eagles. That could mean that they could end up with 17, 9, 16, 18, 16, 9, and potentially a pick wherever West Coast trade back to. So if that is, say, 14, let's just say for argument's sake, suddenly you're in a good position. This is a really, really interesting trade, and one that could be exciting. And over at the reigning premiers, Dev Robertson, obviously always linked with a move in estate. Again, we've talked about Brisbane. Brisbane probably will be happy to sell this for a pick in the 50s. Anything with 100 points to 200 really helps them out on points, and probably gets them just owing about 200 points with the trades we've talked about. So a really, really interesting predicament. Brisbane are going to be heavily active in this, and no one's talking about it, in my opinion, enough. But it is one that we've talked about at length on this show, and we try and keep you informed. So let me know what you think about that. West Coast, incidentally, did pull out of the race for James Peatling, which probably means Devin Robertson would appeal to them. It's a cheaper option, and one that I'm really excited to see where that could lead. So stay tuned for that one. Jackson Pryor, we've mentioned it. He looks like he's on the outer now at Brisbane. The flag-winning key defender looks like he's going to leave. And this could be, again, another one where Brisbane are just trying to acquire them points. And it could be a fascinating tale. This would probably be a cheap as chips deal for Essendon. Essendon probably won't be too worried about it. Probably a future deal which gives them some points to cover any deficit next year and manipulate. Makes sense. Obviously, we talked about there was rumours that he could get delisted, which means they'll come across as a delisted free agent. Hasn't happened yet. Watch this space, though. I think this one happens. Let me know what you think in the comments. And finally, Jack Martin looks set to join Geelong Cats. Heavy favourite. There is rumours that he is going to come out and slag the Blues off, which seems to be customary nowadays when players leave the club, about his injuries, and probably rightly so. I reckon it's a bit of us, bit of them. It's going to be a real fascinating one. So this is a real watch this space. Am I bothered? Not really, mate. Not really, but I do expect he's going to come out and say something. Are we going to learn something? Probably not. But it is always worth listening to. But Jack Martin, he fits them. It's a simple just exchange of contracts. That's it. No value in this one. So a real easy one to do. And Cats doing what the Cats do, which is fascinating. On a side note, Joe Danaher looks set to stay and play on next year, which is always fascinating. Much rumours that he was going to retire, but it's great to see the big JD in the AFL next year. That's what we got for you today. Peace, love and light. Pom out.
I see her rolling up over black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh